It's time once again for the A7FL 3-on-1 podcast. Hello, everyone. Happy whatever day you're watching this edition of the program or listening to us across whatever favorite platform of yours. I'm your host, Matt Ryan, and I'm joined, as always, by two of my favorite people. You know them. You love them. It's Big Rob Fabien and Cory Hammond. Well, you love them depending on who you are this week in the A7FL. Because
they hate us today.
People always hate me, and I take it with a grain of salt because I'm a fairly nice. I'm a nice guy, but also I'm the announcer. Like I'm gonna piss people off some way or another. Like it's just a part of the game. But we are presented by Skillshare. You can get a free 30-day trial if you click the link in the description or if you click the link there. And also now we're on DAZN. Shout out to our friends on DAZN. You see the graphic right there. It says we're on DAZN, so you can watch us internationally alongside the A7FL coverage. And guys, we might as well talk about Week 1 because that's why we are here. It's the reason for the season. And let's take a look at the final scores from last week. The BIC defeated the Renegades 27-20. The U put a whooping on the Snow Tribe 41-12. In our third game of the week, the Force really showed us something. And the Pit Bosses and their new quarterback, Kwame Southall, put in a solid effort. We're only able to put up 12 points, losing 52-12. The Hunters start off the season 1-0, 34-19 win over the Gold. And what could be considered the game of the week, the Insomniacs beat the Sickwit in the franchise's first not only win of the season, but their first win in franchise history, defeating the expansion franchise 42-39. We'll have highlights and B-roll of that for you during the show today. 58-34, the Kryptonite defeated the over-the-top, the Watchmen, asserting themselves, gentlemen, against the DC Buzz, two teams that were in our top 10 last week. Will they be in the top 10 this week? We'll find out in just a few moments. And then we go to Ohio. The Covington Heist defeated the QC Crush 33-12. And the Sin City Chaos. They told us, guys. They told us they were coming, and they showed up in force. As you can see here, the score 50-6. Taking on the Volcanoes, the Olatangi Volcanoes, playing in their first A7FL game. And rounding us out, the Silk City Animals and the Boston Omegas. Your final score in that one, 52-6. Cory, how does it feel to be an Omega before we get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about this week?
Well, this season it was really close to being just announcer Cory Hammond, right, yeah. Guys? I mean, obviously, if you watch the Facebook Lives, shout out to Corey Price having an issue with me making a personal decision. I was on the Snow Tribe, everybody knows, and then I was cut, and then I was on OTT, but I wasn't, and then I was on Pitfalls, and then I wasn't, which was all a joke. But in reality, then I was on the Renegades because I had a familiarity with those guys. CP3 is a personal friend of mine. We were trying to see if we could try to make this work. But as it got closer and closer to, realizing game day, not that really anybody cares the actual truth, but since people are constantly talking about it, I'm just filling everybody in. I thought about the situation with the Renegades, and I think that I was right. You saw CP3. He's the leader of that squad. Having a guy that that team is familiar with, and, the whispers that could have come with, having a backup quarterback like that. I don't even know if that would have been great for the Renegades. Now, talking with Rill, who runs the team, Gerard Haynes, Dondre Haynes, and all those guys, obviously there was interest in having me there. But anybody who knows me knows that when the Boston Omegas put their faith in me and said, hey, we like your game. We really want you to be the quarterback. You know what I had to do. I had to go over. I had to get my Boston hat that I already own because I'm a Boston sports fan. I had to show up for my guys, meet them during the Snow Tribe game, which I wasn't able to see or watch or call. So that was, I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about that game. A lot of
sure.
Sure. Well, everybody that is in our A7FL sphere, Rob, has been really happy with the way that you guys handled that entire game, especially your personal friends and all those people that are close to you. So it would be interesting to, I guess, for you kind of lighten me, because like I said, I was meeting my guys for the first time. Shout out to Xavier, the guy number one, Goose, who probably had the best game.
Goose putting in work.
Yeah, Goose putting in work.
also scored the first ever Boston touchdown for us. Thank you, Huff, by the way. One of his only mistakes on the day. Yeah, tough game, hard fought game, but proud to be a member of the Omegas. And who do we have week 2? I don't know if
I think we'll get there. We'll give you
the updates on that a little bit later on in the broadcast. I'm looking at it now, and you already know it's going to be interesting. So instead of doing what we did last week with the top 10, start from 10 and go all the way up to number 1, we're going to do things a little bit differently this week because we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and usually the top stays, the same. So we could just, everybody,
yeah.
So, we'll just run through the uninteresting stuff, and we'll get right to the spot where nobody knows who's in or out.
Well, let's talk about. Do we want to talk about the people on the outside looking in? Do we want to rip that Band-Aid off?
Let's wait because if we tell them who's the outside looking in, then they already know.
Fill in.
That's true. That's true.
Let's let them down all the way, and then mention them as kind of like a backdoor, like, "Hey, good job, buddies," but maybe not.
And let's give
everybody will be happy with this one. I think everybody's gonna love this one, even Ryan DePaul.
I think you love lying to yourself. I think you wake up to lie to yourself. And
I think, Rob, it's the only thing white people can season. It's sarcasm. So here we go.
Oh, there's the episode title.
It is. Oh my God.
Cory's back.
Where did I go? I mean, I had to go. I had to leave the booth to practice with the guys I never met before. And I had a terrible game personally. I'll take all the swords and arrows.
Listen. We're gonna cook you later. Let's
good. But I will say, just before we get into the top 10, I mean, my 80 yards, which is a terrible day, with only 9 guys, actually equated the passing output of another certain team that had 31 more guys than we did. So, it'll be interesting to see how we progress as a team here in Boston. In
Boston. Let's give some context to our top 10 because week over week.
No, fuck them. Give it to them. They want it anyway.
I didn't think context was important anymore.
Yeah,
fuck the context, right?
Yeah,
look, there are people who are watching this show for the first time, and we want to give them the opportunity.
Shout out to the new people from DAZN that are watching us for the first time.
Right,
it is like this every time. We're 4 minutes in, off the rails.
Grand opening, grand closing, baby.
You are watching the right show. So, Matt, take us away and bring us back onto the rails. Unless, we could just stay off the rails and just keep it with the 10 episodes.
Cool.
I've lost control.
Let's get
all right. The camera's on me now. So we'll... All right. Cutting back to me now. We started a top 10 list late last year with a preseason top 10. Right. And it was our initial thoughts on who we thought were going to be the 10 best teams heading into the 2023 season. A lot of people got mad at that list. So we decided, why not do it again? With the same context. What are the 10 teams after seeing the fall, after seeing these rosters shape out for the most part? Why not have that? And it's also going to be a part of the show week over week. We're not going to dedicate whole episodes to it starting next week, but this is the opening week, and we're heading into some of the biggest matchups of the season, some of the most determinate matchups of the season. So this top 10 list is based on who won, who lost, who they beat, who they lost to, how they performed, and the overall style of play, and their potential of winning the championship. That, to me, is the heart and crux of it, and I think you guys would agree.
100%. I just want to get it shaking.
All right, so let's get to the part where we piss everybody off, and I gotta.
See, Matt wanted to warm everybody up first with a little bit of like.
Let's get it shaking, Matthew.
He's Netflix and chilling. He's got the movie. He's not even scrolling. He's set up. He's got the popcorn and microwave. It's like, nah, man, we already know what we came here for.
Let's
get
do
this
it.
top
All
10.
right, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Here are the top 3 teams in the A7FL heading into week 2.
Rob, you thought some people were mad at you earlier today?
Oh, they're finna be pissed right now.
Number 3, the Patterson U. Number 2, the BIC. And number 1, the Baltimore Watchmen.
Damn.
Now,
the way Matt did it, though, he was like, let's make the U guys happy that they bumped up real
They
quick.
definitely bumped
Number
up.
3, the U. And then there was a couple people that were like around watching, like, yeah, we're the
That
U.
makes sense.
We're number 3. We went up a spot.
That makes
Number
sense.
2, BIC. Number 1, the Watchmen. Rob, your thought? What? Let's break it down. Let's start at 1. Rob, the Watchmen. Put the plan that was on paper that seemed really nice, really cool. And they faced a team in the DC Buzz that we respected by putting at number 7 in our top 10 preseason.
Right.
How'd that go?
Honestly, we know how it go. 34-7. And the Watchmen did exactly what they said they were going to do. They hashtag watch this. They went out there and they kind of demolished the Buzz, which again, to everybody, well, to me anyway, was definitely a surprise. I thought the Buzz were going to play a much tougher game. They were ranked number 7, which if you use your brain, it would explain why the number 2 team beating the number 7 team handedly is more impressive than the former number 1 team.
We'll get to BIC.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We'll get there. Struggling with an unranked team. Right. And honestly, I think people are underestimating the Watchmen a great deal.
really,
And this is not even a slight, like I want to talk about the teams that we're talking about, right? The Watchmen looked a lot better on paper. They look good, but on the field, these guys look good. They look like they've been around each other for a while. I've seen a lot of players and plays that made me think these guys have been playing together for a hot minute. I don't think they're as easy as a team as I think the league was looking at them. And we placed them at number 2 last week for a reason. And getting this win this week, the way they did it, like there's no question about how they won. First quarter was, I think it was, they were up
0-0.
just 8-0.
It was 0-0.
It was
0-0 most of the first quarter, yeah.
And it's because they started Lanny Manziel. They said they would do that, and they did it just to spite the Buzz, and they definitely did it, which to me is more of a spit in the face that they started late, which means if they started who they were supposed to start on time, we're not looking at a 34-7. We're looking at a 40-plus point route of the DC Buzz. So
and it's interesting.
To me, that's probably one of the more impressive wins of the day. It was a interdivision win. It was a huge win, and they got to see the Buzz one more time. Hopefully the Buzz can get it together. But right now, that's the clear-cut number 1. But it's after week 1, guys. Relax.
No, don't relax. Be mad. It's fine. That's what the show and that's what this top 10 is for, I think, specifically. And I think we'll talk later about even some of the things that motivate us to even say some of the things that we say this early in the season, the 3 of us were talking, we all disagreed on what our top 10 was.
Yeah.
We came up with a consensus, and it just put it into better perspective. The president of the league, Ryan DePaul, was telling us like that we were crazy and all of these were wrong. And the things that he said were even crazier than what we were about to say. We're not going to.
None of us agree on the top.
And we did receive tape from A7FL President Ryan DePaul. We will have a very special 3-on-1 editorial at the end of the broadcast. We will respond to it, but that will come at the end of the show. But
so that was just an early tease, but it's interesting the way that you phrased something at what you were talking about, Rob, which just to kind of put a cap on the number 1 team, you said the guys that should have started, talking about who the quarterback was. And what we saw is we saw Lenny first, and then we saw the mix of OG Buck and John Gauze. And against the Buzz, when they were blowing them out and everybody was feeling comfortable, and Rob, better than anybody, when the score gets 30-something to something, defensive players, they got to go to work tomorrow. Some of the things are open up a little easier than they normally would in the first quarter when it's competitive. So, I'm going to be interested to see as we talk about what's in front of the Watchmen moving forward and how they approach that. Because when you say that, Rob, to me, who should start? What did you mean, especially at the quarterback position? Because they got to probably figure out who's their main guy starting.
Okay.
Like, I don't know,
See,
when this pod drops.
I get the narrative that you're going with, but who should start means not Lenny.
Okay. And that's fair enough in week 2 to say.
Yeah, after that, it doesn't matter if it's Ace or it doesn't matter if it's who's the other quarterback? OG Buck. It doesn't matter if it's Ace or Buck, honestly, because they can both get the job done. And I honestly think if their egos are tucked in their pocket and these guys understand their strengths versus their weaknesses, they can give teams a big problem interchanging the two back and forth, where people will feel like, I know it's unconventional and people are like, oh my God, you need one guy. But sometimes, bro, sometimes.
Wait. Who was the person in our first episode who preached a 2-quarterback?
Did you preach or did you ask and then we just didn't like it, but now it's starting to turn into what every team's trying to do?
Look. That's not what every team's trying to do.
Someone over the weekend said to my good friend Robert Fabien that they thought your boy, Matthew Robert Ryan, the voice of this league.
Robert?
Yeah.
You're definitely a simulation. He's not real, guys. He's not real.
We hug.
He's AI.
But yes, someone who we will not say, who we know very well, who's been a guest on this podcast, was a guest on this podcast, had a conversation with me on camera, believed that I was a simulation, that I was an artificial intelligence, that I did not exist as an actual person who eats sandwiches and walks their dog.
Yeah, they didn't believe it.
So
that was also part of the simulation with the sandwiches and the dog were part of the simulation. I mean, it was the whole thing. The person we were talking about thought that the 3-on-1 podcast was me and Rob talking to a AI generating
an A7FL chat GPT AI. I get it.
Type in right now. A7FL football host with wrestler's background that enjoys Thick Boy season.
And tons of references.
Parentheses, pause, and parentheses, and tons of references pre Gen Z being aware of them. Go. Boom. There he is in the middle.
Hi. But I believe I will be now referred to since
Matt Ryan.
Since I am AI, I would like to be known as Matt the Answer Ryan going forward.
That's it. Everybody in the A7 needs a nickname. And if guys can go as Lit Nuke, Matt Ryan can go by AI, the answer.
But
go ahead, bring
Cory.
it back to the top 10.
No, that's what Matt was doing before you said but. Well, go ahead, Matt. Because Matt was going to say something.
Bring it back to the top 10 because I'm going to say we don't. What you're saying is not Lenny, right? But guess what? Moving forward for the Watchmen, they better figure out the chemistry or the formula, whether it's the two of them, whether it's one or the other, because the number 2 team is the number 1 team's opponent in week 2. And if BIC is pissed off that they're number 2, then guess what? They only have a couple of minutes that they have to deal with it because they have an opportunity facing the Watchmen in the games of the week this weekend. Maybe one of the best games that we see in the regular season, guys, potentially, right? Based on what we're talking about.
I think this is structured. The 2 games. There are 2 games this weekend that could conceivably be the Eastern semifinal and the Western semifinal. And that's Sikwit and Force, and that's the BIC and the Watchmen. Like, we may see, and I've got a prediction of who's going to come out of Ohio. I think we have the answer already. It's week 1, but I think we have the answer. Right. We kind of have an assumption about Florida. We'll address that later in the top 10. But this BIC Watchmen game, and let's not forget about you and Buzz, because that will be an important matchup too. That some people believe. We're not forgetting that. Yeah, some people that believe. That's our first game of the day, by the way, this Sunday at 1 p.m. on DAZN and A7FL.TV. The U and Carlos Croslin will go on up against Mark Diggs, Mike Go Make It, and the DC Buzz. But this BIC Watchmen game is what is a playoff game because
it's the battle for number one.
Yeah,
if
but
either of
just
these-
like in early last season when the U took on BIC and it was a really close game, and then still the U made it back to the championship. It is a test. It is an actual battle that both of these teams want to be able to come out on top. I don't think it's a playoff game, guys, because both of these teams are likely going to make the playoffs.
It matters for seeding, though.
It's going to well, does it?
It does,
I mean,
because
really?
one of
What
these
are you
teams,
watching?
because one of these
Are they
teams
gonna
will more
play
than
home
likely, more than these
Are
teams.
they going to play home games in Baltimore?
Yeah.
Bro, Baltimore. Look, hold on, hear me out. Baltimore has been to New Jersey so much. That's a home game. They don't care about that. Travel for Baltimore is a joke.
That's what I'm saying. So the
it doesn't
seeding,
matter.
the seeding's not anything.
The
This is
seeding
about
does matter,
pride.
bro.
This
The seeding matters, bro. You know the seed. You think you're saying that? You think BIC wants a loss? You think you be honest with yourself right now. Do you think BIC wants a loss? Do you really think so? They haven't lost in a year. Do you think they want a loss right now?
I don't think. Listen, and no team goes into a weekend wanting a loss.
But then there's teams
But
that know
if
that
the
they can lose.
I'm saying if BIC loses, is that the end of their season?
It's not the end of
It's not
their
a playoff
season, but if you see the Renegades coming on strong, you see the Patterson U start figuring out Carlos Croslin as their number one option unless Kareem Moon comes back. We saw what the U could do against teams at that level. We don't know what the animals are going to be. One loss in a 7-week season
is
devastating to your playoff hopes when you have the toughest road to the championship of any possible team.
So if the Watchmen lose to the presumptive favorite in BIC in a close game, or for instance, Sick With It loses to the Insomniacs in one of the favorites in Vegas, that's that big of a setback. I think that early on in the season, both of these teams are going to obviously want to win, and both of these teams are going to benefit from getting the confidence of beating the other top team, and could send the other team on a spiral, which is obviously possible.
But
What
we
I'm
saw that with
talking
the U
about.
last year, though. We saw with the U.
What happened after they lost 3 games, and then they
lost 4.
They reset themselves.
They lost 4.
They lost 3 games in the regular season and then reset themselves in the playoffs. They
To do
faced a
what?
rare breed team. They faced a rare breed team
That
that they
shouldn't have
handled
faced.
easily.
That they shouldn't have faced, but go ahead.
And then they lost by 2 points to BIC in the championship. We're not talking about the U imploding after even 3 losses. They still had the chance to put their season back on the reins, because sometimes after a loss, guys, you could look at your team and make adjustments to improve. Especially if you're a team like the Watchmen, in which they're still learning what their team actually is. They haven't been. They know that their team is good.
That's the narrative that I think we have to give up. They're not learning, they're not learning each other. There's nothing to learn. These guys know each other. We're learning them. They know each other already. They know these guys
they know each other.
Together. Yeah,
but just like when you looked at BIC with all of their new pieces against the Renegades, they're still putting some of the pieces together, which is why a team with as much talent as they have, and even the consistent that they have,
let's cut it right to the truth. Let's cut it right to the truth at what happened with BIC and why they dropped. BIC, Sterry didn't get an opportunity to be Sterry and do what he does. The wind in Asbury was atrocious. That wind was undefeated.
For every
it was
quarterback
20 miles per hour.
Yeah, let's start there. So nobody thinks we're over here shitting on quarterbacks and saying everybody was terrible. No, the wind was bad. On the contrary, before I realized how bad the wind was, I was like, damn, these dudes can't throw. And then you made a mention like, bro, look at the water. The water is rippling, and I'm looking at people's shirts dancing, and I'm like, oh, the wind is bad. This is very bad. So, okay, it's already bad for anybody who throws a ball. It's bad. Now, start your game off with Ashanti Worthy not giving which sounds insane, not giving your offense the opportunity to even touch the field. 12 unanswered points with no time off the clock. Yeah. All right. So let's just start it with that, because what it really is Ashanti is not really giving these guys opportunity to get warm or to get used to the wind velocity and all that. Bro, you need more than 2-3 drives to really get it going. And it's not a stick on.
And the one thing that the Renegades did,
you have to.
I'm sorry, Rob, but the one thing
No,
the
right,
Renegades did to facilitate your point, they ate up 3/4 of the first quarter on one possession and only got 6 points out of it.
Right.
So I think
Right.
that we're looking at a lot of different variables to this, and the BIC are still the undefeated reigning champions.
Right.
And
that game that they played against the Renegades kind of reminded us, at least it reminded me, of the Final Four matchup against the Gators, in which they won. The game was pretty much in hand most of the game. There was a couple of moments where it felt like it was closer, but even the score, the Renegades,
the score wasn't the same at all.
The Renegades'
BIC
final
blew them
score, they weren't moving, in my opinion, just fast enough with the amount of tempo that you would need to come back at 2 scores at that point. But let's not get it twisted. In the face of that 20 miles an hour wind, I saw CP3 throw 3 dimes, 2 to Khalil Green,
CP3
and that
crazy.
one to Liberty when he stepped up in the pocket and threw it right to his face. That was pretty tight coverage, and Liberty caught that in stride. So,
and I don't mean to be a negative guy, and Rob, I'll let you get to your point. There are a lot of timing errors, and I don't know if it's because of CP3's injury. I don't know if it's still trying to get in sync with your receivers, but he missed DeAndre Haynes on a go route.
That one was into the wind.
Yeah.
That was with the wind, and the wind.
There were a couple of times where he was throwing in again, throwing into the, throwing with the wind. And
that's why
but
I don't want to be too harsh on the quarterbacks, because once again, in live coverage where, it's a lot going on. We're looking at exciting plays. Oh my goodness, touchdown. Where's Ashanti? Where's Sterry? We're looking for Sterry to do his run. It's a lot going on, but when we get a chance to analyze after the game and we're sitting here looking at these stats and looking at I'm like, wait a second. These guys look like they did terrible, but they were throwing against 20-mile-per-hour winds and throwing with it. So even that light toss to DeAndre Haynes, where I'm like, CP3, you got to make that throw. Bro, the wind sailed it over that man's fingers. He's 6'6". I've watched CP3 make harder throws than that.
And that was 3rd and 15.
Right. And then he
missed
it. But
the next play, he got the first down. So it doesn't really matter.
Right.
And then later on in the drive, he missed another 3rd down pass, and we were like, oh, well, you kind of want that one back, but guess what? Ran it in the next play. So,
but back to BIC, right? Back to BIC.
So we're talking about the Renegades BIC. So, like I said, I think that win, although ugly, it was pretty still well-handed. So we could still say that BIC is either at the top or the top of the teams in this league. We just honestly, for all of the talk saying how easy it was for them and how this is their league and how they were going to run the table, and how we respected,
it don't look good.
Well, how we respected not only who they brought back and how they would improve, but also the new pieces
people.
That we I think that they sit right there at number 2, with maybe this little talking that the Watchmen are better than them right now based on our top 10. Maybe the motivation to get them back on track, so then we could talk about them the way that we were talking about them all offseason.
And let's talk about our number 4 team, a team that.
Well, and then let's just
Well, we talked about the U. We talked about the U really briefly, but so let's get to them right now. Carlos Crosland coming in, former Gators quarterback, was behind John Gauze. Played a lot of downs last season for the Gators, and he and Snag Sosa being the Baltimore additions to that team, amongst others. Tremendous day in terms of leading that U offense. And at certain points, the offensive philosophy of the U has changed. We've known that they've had great running backs before, but now relying on hard body more, relying more on Willie Easterling, a.k.a. Willie Mayweather, Charles Irvin being on that squad, losing the ice cream truck, who's on the BIC now. Like, that's something that we didn't even have a chance to talk about. But he wasn't the same guy that we've seen the last few years, which is against that Renegades defense. Against that Renegades defense, any running back in this league, in my opinion, maybe outside of Courage and maybe RTC, that's a non-winning proposition if you're going to try to utilize the run game. And I think that Renegades U game is going to be a real interesting test for this U offense. But the U defense were on par with what we expected. I think they performed better than we expected. Pat Coburn had a great game. Pat Coburn gave me a fair amount of shade going 4? You're putting
no,
us 4?
Nah, he's been saying that all week since we did that. So now I'm expecting him to say 3. Copy. All right. But with the U, there's something that was crossing my mind while I'm watching him play. I remember who the U was before Huff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a possibility that Huff changed everything that we thought we knew about the U. Darryl Luck, who was a staple in the older U teams, was playing Sunday, and it just reminded me of how much damage he could do, hard body, how much damage he could do. And then I'm looking at the roster, I'm like, bro, they have every good running back of the last, 7, 8 seasons on their team. They have Dion, they have Snags, they have Mayweather, they have Charles Irving, they have Luck, and they still have SJ and other guys. I'm like, bro, they have a bunch of running backs on their team. I've never seen that before. But from what I saw, even against that vicious win, Carlos Crosland looked poised, looks like he's been here before. Looks like they gave him the keys to a fancy car and he's not going to crash it. He did throw an interception, but again, that wind was disgusting. That's why I'm really not trying to harp on quarterbacks and how good or how bad they did. I don't think it's too fair to do that. But Carlos Crosland looked very okay on his debut. I think the running game of the U looked very good on their debut. And I am kind of excited to see what they got going. This game next week against the DC Buzz should answer a lot of questions.
Well, I think with the U too, their game, I think the first half, they did what they needed to do in the first half. Let's be honest. They were up 12-0. But it looked a lot closer in the first half between those two teams.
Because it was. It didn't look. It really was.
And then once, and I talked to a couple of guys that were involved in this game, and then once the Dion return happened, the momentum just started shifting. Well, that is what happens when the momentum shifts too. And I wasn't going to say it, you said it, but
I'll say it.
It's not like you've made anybody that's either involved or close to the Snow Tribe upset at all this week.
Yeah, not at all. Everybody's happy with me.
But my thing is that have them friends.
I think with the U, they also had to kind of figure out exactly how they were going to put this stuff together. And what we saw is that once they started feeling themselves and they got that swagger, it wasn't like it's not like Huff never left, but it is almost like when Huff was like a rookie and
he wasn't there.
The formula for the U.
They looked like the old U, which
the formula was to run the ball, dominate on defense, and burn people with play action with one-on-one coverage. Because you have guys out there that are going to jump and catch the ball. Exactly.
Coburn was cooking people. Lord.
He had a day. Shout out to Pat Coburn.
And the thing about having Crosland back there, right? I talked to Mr. Incredible Nazir Smith because we're friends. I have experience playing with him, and I was like, "Come on, yo, go tell Ryan to get. He should have got me on your guys' team." But the difference that Carlos Crosland can do is he can extend that pocket timing. And then what you saw in that first touchdown is Hat, who was Nigel Hawthorne, Hat, the corner for the Snow Tribe.
That boy.
What?
That boy.
But on the natural part of the play, the first 3 or 4 seconds of that play, he actually was covering the route that Pat ran. But when Carlos was able to extend the play, all Pat had to do was change directions, and he was completely lost and wide open.
Man, Hat was lost. He was looking for a safety, man. Hat was lost out there, bro. Hat was lost.
But
I'll tell you after the show why he was lost.
I know why he was lost. But in the scheme of the play, but listen, in the scheme of the play, if he guarded him on the initial route, it was when the quarterback, who Crosland is able to do this very well, extends the play and breaks that pocket, which is why having the quarterback with mobility in this league is valuable. Pat was able to get wide open because once we got 4 or 5 seconds into the route, no one's covering scat for 4, 5, 6 seconds. And Carlos threw that bullet that was into the wind. So he obviously has the arm strength, and just getting the time in with his receivers, getting more used to how they do things. he looks like he's more than capable of running the U offense the way that it was kind of introduced into this league as one of the dominant offenses that you had to deal with Sunday in and Sunday out.
Next up is a team that's been mad at us. A little bit of the meme. A team that got a emphatic victory on Sunday. The Vegas Force are our number 4 team after laying waste. There we go. To the Pit Bosses in our 7 o'clock game on Sunday, our final game of the week. Coach Mack, I gotta say it. They looked good. They had Gary Weaver was an amazing asset to them,
and they should be proud of a number 4 in the entire nation. But I know for a fact that they're going to be like, why not 3?
I mean, I'll put it to you like this: like Matt said earlier, we did not agree on this. Is an amalgamation of all the lists that we actually made.
So this is where you're going to die on this hill, right?
Okay, listen, I did not have the Force at 4. Y'all played the Pit Bosses. You did what you were supposed to do. That's the thing, right? If it was the Pit Bosses of yesteryear or last season, all right, cool.
2 months ago.
2 months ago.
2 months ago.
Okay, cool. You guys beat the stud Pit Bosses. I definitely didn't have the Pit Bosses at 4. I mean the Forces at 4. They did exactly what I expected them to do with the guys that they do have. They did have a lot of pickups. Curtis Jones looked like Curtis Jones. He's still that guy, and I expect him to play at that level. So again, a lot of the stuff that I saw from them is what I expected against a team like the Pit Bosses, who are the new Insomniacs. Like, we get in the switch, right? Like,
yeah.
And they shut down K Uno. They had an opportunity to mercy rule those guys, and they said, no, we'll keep playing. Let's put that out there too. So really, it was probably 49-50 something to 0, and they just let them play that fourth quarter. So, but I still didn't have them at 4 because of strength of who they beat. They didn't beat anyone. But continue.
Well, they were in the top 5. Or
who?
The Force. They were in the top 6 a week ago, and I think the level of performance set against who lost, set against who won, and set against the new people on the list. It's really hard to justify in week 1 putting a team that lost ahead of against a lot of teams who won, with limited exception. With very limited exception. And that was kind of the rubric of how I looked at it. And that's why me and Cory kind of had the Force in the upper echelon. You can make an argument that number 5 can be number 4.
Well, but let's stay with the Force, because what they did is they answered some of the questions that we had on what they looked like against Vegas competition. Now, I think Rob is on the right track with exactly what he's saying about the level of competition that they faced in week 1. But you can't deny that what we saw is efficient and effective play from the quarterback position. We saw plenty of time for whoever was playing quarterback back there. When they decided to run, even though they don't have RTC, they were able to get yards. And it looks like they added a lot of pieces on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So I think when we go into a week-to-week top 10, I would say that the Force, exactly did what Rob said they did, is they did what they were supposed to do. And the reason that is still impressive to us is because they're supposed to be, according to Derek Duncan, according to the championship belt that they're still basically wearing from the division, they're supposed to be the class of the division. So they come out, they take care of business, they look impressive doing it. Now, let's see how they do against some of the other teams that are on their schedule. And like you mentioned earlier in this podcast, Matt, their week 2 matchup, sick with it. And we may talk about them later. We may not. They did lose. But sick with it looked like they were also a pretty good team too. And part of this top 10 is also the eye test. We're watching these teams play teams, and we can judge them based on what we know about football. We watch a lot of A7. So, but what I would say is, even though Rob necessarily wouldn't say that they're all the way up at 4, I think they did have an impressive win regardless of I think they did have an impressive win, regardless of who they were playing.
You want to know why? You want to know why I don't think they have an impressive win? It's going to be the same reason. You'll see why later when we get to the rest of the top 10. Why
I would say, do you think that the Animals looked impressive?
That's the same. It's the same caliber.
It's the same thing, exactly.
Right.
I have to disagree. I have to disagree because The Animals are still the Huff show. And when we get to the Animals, we'll get to the Animals. There's some quality players on that team, but Tariq Flowers had an epic performance. Gary Weaver had a star-making performance. Rock Briscoe looked better than we saw him against the Snow Tribe, and it could be a level of competition argument. And I will give you that. I will give you that the Pit Bosses are not the toughest challenge that the Force are going to face this season. But when you're stepping onto the field, playing together for the first time in 9 months, and adding new pieces and adding new personalities, and the team honestly working as well as it did together, they needed those fourth quarter reps, to be completely honest with you, because next week they're walking into they're walking into a meat grinder.
And I'll ask you guys this: we expected a lot more from a team that gave us a lot less, that is higher than them in BIC. Now, we also respect the opponent that BIC played, so I get that argument. But we weren't really talking about the Renegades as a team that was in the top 10. They were close.
We know we
until
did.
They proved it
we
to
did.
us.
No, I said it. You could check the last pod. I said, listen, the reason why the Renegades don't crack the top 10 for me back then was because we thought Cory was hurt. We didn't know if Khalil would have shown up. He showed up. These guys showed up. So there's no more question. So they are facing a quality team to compare. Honestly, to even make the compare, is that what you just did? Made the comparison from the Renegades to the Pit Bosses? Because that's insane.
That's unfair, and that's insane.
That's not an equitable comparison, and I think that
and we didn't kill BIC for not destroying the Renegades, right?
Not at all.
So that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that what I'm saying is that the Force, they did what they were supposed to do. And if if BIC did what they were supposed to do, we wouldn't really have thought less of the Renegades. I think we think more of the Renegades, and we still know that BIC is BIC. I also think that we're having fun with BIC with what we did. But at the end of the day, with the Force, I will caution them, because Rob, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, every single team out there in Vegas, when they started feeling themselves real heavy and started getting real active on social media and started talking all of the trash that they felt like they deserved to talk based on the things that they've done. Let's go in order. The Pit Bosses after 2 weeks of the fall. Then it was the Hunters. Then it was the Kryptonite in the championship. All of those teams were humbled very quickly after their rise to, look at us now. You better give us our flowers. It's week 1. So all of these teams that we're praising, all of these teams that we're saying stuff that might be negative, it's week 1. So the Force, I think at number 4, it's a nice spot. But if they come out in the next 2 weeks, they play sick with it. And if I'm not mistaken, after Easter, they play Insomniacs. So regardless of whether we just put them at 1 or 4 or 30, the next 2 weeks are going to tell us a lot more about the Force than that Pit Bosses game at 7 o'clock on Sunday.
I agree with. And let's go to number 5. And, well, Cory, you said him. And it is a team that wasn't on the list. What, Rob, you got something?
No, I'm saying this was the team I thought was number 4. But, we have to work together here. This is a team effort, guys.
Yeah.
It's not one person running the show. We have to put these three, let's be honest, it's like 5 minds, right? We have to put it together and come up with a list that's fair to everyone, whether you like the spots or not.
And
your guys 2, and then all of my personalities, 5 minds. Let's go. And speaking of number 5,
it's the Las Vegas Insomniacs at the 5 spot. And Rob, you have a point. Like, they could be number 4. They had a great game against Sick With It. Honestly. But I have to respect the fact that the Force are still as dominant while losing RTC.
Well, let me say this. What do we say about the Insomniacs? They're a Las Vegas what, Rob?
What did you say?
When we mention the Insomniacs roster, what they basically are, they're a Las Vegas what type of team?
All-Stars team.
And when you watch the NBA All-Star game, what do you never see?
Playing defense.
So when I watch that game, let me tell you, they are an all-star team. And you look at the names and you're like, name. These guys are going to put up points. And did they? Yes, they did. And it looked easy at times. And whether they were putting Scooter in a quarterback and he was balling out and he was doing all kinds of crazy, awesome TBS stuff, but he's also very talented and skilled. And I appreciate that we were able to see that in more of a almost full game scenario. But we also saw Trey come in there at quarterback. We saw Trey doing this thing on the 3-on-1 return. But I will say this, they ran a what type of defense? A zone, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
So to me, they are a Vegas All-Star team. And why I think I put them at 5 on my ranking is because even though it was against a worse quality opponent in the pit bosses, the Force, they played great offense, they played great defense, they played great special teams. And now, again, week 1, we're just going off based on who they played. And Sickwit could have one of the best offenses in the league, and we just don't know it yet. Shout outs to Lavish T. That's my guy.
He had a great game, by the way. I was watching some of the highlights. Yeah.
And that's why I call him that. Like, Demon Slayer, the Lord Tenyon, that's his thing. He says flashy, and he has the different color hair and all that kind of other kind of stuff. But that's just the anime character, and I love making anime references. But the fact is that Lavish T is a baller, and we learned that in the championship game. And now he's with Sickwit making great catches. But what I didn't see from the Insomniacs, even though I think their offense is on that all-star level, I didn't see the commitment to dominating another team's offense with their defense yet. And I think as they gel and everybody gets their roles on that team, maybe that is something that we see. But not that I disagree with you too much, Rob, because I think the strength of competition is important. But what I saw from the Insomniacs when we saw a team in Sickwit, which I think we even mentioned maybe close to our top 10, but since we never saw them yet, we couldn't really put them in. Right. I think we respect both those teams. And the fact that they were so close and the fact that we didn't really diminish what the Insomniacs were ranked as, because I think we respect them very highly. It just goes to show you how we're really paying attention to the Vegas division as much as possible and giving it as true of a read as we can. Derek,
I'm gonna be honest, we have to. We have to, and there's a reason why I'm going.
Yeah, but we already knew we had to.
No, but hear me out. But there's a reason why I feel like, especially now that we have to keep a very close watch on Vegas. Because it's guaranteed that someone from the West Coast makes it to the chip.
Someone there.
Now, if
we can't. It's not. It may not be Nevada.
It's not okay.
It may not be Nevada.
It may not be Nevada.
And it's likely not the volcano.
If you're asking me, I think the West Coast is Vegas owned. You guys are on the West Coast. You're here to change my mind and make it something else. But based off of how I feel, I think that's the case. Now, if we don't cover these guys properly, BIC or the U or the Watchmen, and we'll just call all the top 3 just to say, are going to go over there and not know who any of these guys are and could be surprised if we're not covering these guys properly. If they don't know Trey Robertson to do this, if they don't know Sickwit is actually Sickwit. If they don't know these things, bro, that's a problem. That's a problem, and it's
for
our job.
For the East guys, right? It's a problem for these guys.
Yeah. And I want them to have a fair shake in understanding that there are some stud athletes over there. We're not putting them up there because we like Vegas. Vegas thinks we hate them. Vegas, everybody thinks we hate them. That's the crazy part.
So what you're saying, Rob,
what am I saying, Corey?
So what you're saying, Rob, is that to benefit Vegas, it would actually benefit Vegas if they got worse coverage.
1,000%.
Derek, you've been messing this up the whole time.
It would benefit Vegas. It would definitely benefit Vegas to have worse coverage.
They're getting their coverage, and they're doing great coverage, and everybody knows they want more cocks in their life, so get it from KC. What? Pause?
Shout out to Casey Cox, A-Dub, and the Vikings, Scott McCorkle, who bring you the A7FL Nevada broadcast, except when we do the 7 o'clock game of the week out east. They're on the Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network and also on A7FL.tv.
As I step over your sorry, man. Shout out to those Atlanta rappers that were chopped and screwed doing that call in some of those games, just hijacking it from us. And then there was number 6.
Yeah, let's get to number 6. And this one
not
is
not
much to talk about, right?
The Nightcrawlers are number 6 because it's honestly a placeholder for them.
Right.
We can't take them off the board because we know how good they are. But we can't move them up. We had to move them down because of the performance of the 2 Vegas teams and the Patterson U. Everybody else
because we respect Derek Duncan and we don't want him to have conniption, right?
Yeah. Well, I just don't want coaches texting me and fetching.
They're going to.
I know.
Someone's
Someone
the
somewhere is
carrier
going to be.
pigeon is on his way.
As soon
they
as
didn't
this
even hear
drops.
it yet. They didn't even hear it yet. They
Oh, yeah.
sent the pigeon. It takes a couple days to fly.
I tried
They
taking
knew.
a nap today, and
Peckin.
my phone was just blowing up with people asking what's going on, why isn't this, people asking for their highlights to be shown. Like, guys, I'm very
Where's the
tired.
film?
I had to clean up so much jam on Sunday. And for those who are new to following the league, this league is not, even though the teams are across the country, the player community is very close-knit and very talkative. And when you're basically a huge community, a huge fraternity of athletes, everybody talks to everybody. And that's when shit talk happens. That's when all these side conversations happen, and why people think I'm a robot. It just facilitates this cross-division rivalry. And Florida and Nevada have it. And I think that the Nightcrawlers being at 6, and that spot not going to a Jersey team or going to an Ohio team or going to a Nevada team after 1 week when the Nightcrawlers haven't played yet, I think that might be motivation for the Nightcrawlers. That might be a nice ego boost for the Nightcrawlers, to be completely honest with you, but that might be the thing needed for some of these teams that are in the bottom 4 to really drive themselves into being a top 5 team. Like, we may see some crazy stuff happen on Sunday. And speaking of crazy stuff happening on Sunday, let's go to our number 7 team.
Number 7.
Go ahead.
It's
Matt.
the Silk City Animals. Rob, go ahead.
And I know people like the animals. Well, listen, strength of schedule, right? We're looking at it. They didn't play anybody super duper impressive. But when we saw who they had on the team and how they were kind of melding and what Huff was doing, there's no way they don't break the top 10. And no one with a loss is going to be over a team with a win with that kind of talent on it. Huff changes the animals. They only moved, 2 spots? Were they at number 9?
Yeah, they were at number 9. They were at number 9.
Number 9. They move up 2 spots. And I think it's right. Huff really looks like he had a handle on that team. I think the Omegas was probably the best team for those guys to play, to kind of get their feet wet. Actually, Huff even said that. He said, we're going to destroy them. He actually did call it. So we're going to destroy the Omegas. And then it's a tune-up game. And then we'll go into week 2. I don't think he expected to face who he's going to face, but we'll talk about that later. But what I saw was a Huff that was Huff. I saw all the elements that made the U in the last few seasons special, now special on that Animals teams. And I saw the Animals franchise be so excited to be revitalized and have so much vigor. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there's more players, more actual good players on the Animals than people think. Huff brung guys with him. And I tried to warn people that Huff making such a move he's not going there by himself. I tried to warn people, but for whatever reason, people don't want to listen to me.
I spent so much personal time with Chill Out Duke in the backfield. I actually said this after one of the knockdowns, because I did throw it before he got to me on this one. And I said, "You're back here so much, we're going to be friends after this." And we actually in the handshake line, like, good game afterwards, after the 3 quarters. We actually embraced as if we've been always cool. And this is the same man that in 2021 was like, "Where's LJ?" as I was presenting his team with a championship.
Right. And they're the only
team. But let me just say this:
they're the only team to Mercy Rule. The Animals deserve to be here. They're the only team to Mercy Rule. And yes, tons of teams played. Whoever. The guys are there. But go ahead, Cory.
I stood in front of the what they called the Dream Team in Vegas, the Battle at Bullhead Dream Team, right?
Mm-hmm.
The team that the Animals put in front of me was either comparable or better than that. And I saw it firsthand, period.
Okay.
Now, I literally had to take 6 Tylenol today.
Oof.
That's how their defensive line played. And I will say that although my guys were getting busy, look at Rob's like, that's why I retired. It wasn't just because I was
At some point,
every single time I get a chance that BIC was coming and I didn't want to have to deal with that.
At some point, Rob and I almost deputized Rob and I.
Worse.
We are off today. We are very tired. Me mainly.
Oh, I'm on.
You're energized as hell today, buddy. But at one point, I almost deputized Rob and I to go down there and help you, but then we decided against it.
Hell no.
We're both retired.
With nine guys, we were getting a lot of, from the sideline, we were getting a lot of tips and coaching and all this other stuff. All we really needed was a couple extra bodies, even just one body, if it was standing there. But we didn't get that. So we had the 9. I made the half tackle. Shout out to the All Pro Jaffos posting just that highlight. But hey, I'll say this though. I'll say this. For all the talk we were talking about,
Cory, you got your shit cooked, boy.
listen.
You got your shit cooked.
I'll just say this. There's people in this league that people respect highly that actually had the choice to make the same decision to do what I did. And I know for 100% fact that almost nobody has the courage and the stones and the loss of intelligence to make the same decision that I did, regardless of whether they would ever be put in that position or not.
You think so?
I don't think. I know, Rob, for 100% fact, and you know too, there was at least one person that you respect that has played that position in this league that had the opportunity to do what I did and said, I'm good, thanks, and did not. And we're not going to say his name. We're not going to
I thought Huff did that, leaving a top 1 or 2 team
Huff is
to go
good.
to the Animals. I
But
thought
Huff is good.
I thought
No,
CP
I'm not.
did that. Going to the Renegades, who again.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying to suit up with the Boston Omegas specifically.
Okay, yeah.
No, shout out to CP3, and he went to a Renegades team that I think he elevated, and shout outs to Huff. He obviously elevated the Animals. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if somebody had the opportunity to suit up with the Omegas, they said, I'm good, and literally didn't. So, number 8. 7?
Well, number 7 is the Animals. Let's go to number 8, and making a debut in the top 10 is a team that we've been told we're coming after the A7FL championship. A team that has their own banner on the sidelines. Like a dude was running down the sidelines with a banner for this team during a pick six. Like, I seen it. You'll see it during the highlights.
It must be a team that's been around for a while if they're got a banner already.
It is at number 8, the Sin City Chaos. That's right,
Wow.
Cincinnati getting in the top 10, and it is not the QC Crush or the Covington Heist.
And Sin City is not Vegas, by the way.
Yeah, that makes it even more confusing.
Sin with a C.
Sin as in Cincinnati, but I think they're for real, guys. I was watching the highlights, and I was watching coverage of the game, and defensively, they got a Olatangi Volcanoes team on their back foot from the word go. They were able to pull out 3-on-1 touchdowns. They were able to beat the team offensively, throwing the ball, running the ball, whether it was the quarterback running or the run game. I think we have found the Ohio representative in the Western Conference Finals. I don't mean to be too presumptive, but
I think it's early to say that. I think that they look legit, but I think the same thing can be said about their game. That could be said about the Animals. That could be said about the Force. Let's see who they're facing, because the Olentangy Volcanoes, as awesome as their logo is, they are an expansion team. They're the only team, I believe, from Columbus, kind of, right? I mean, Olentangy is Columbus. So we're going to see how that 50-6 game actually shakes out.
Bro,
as
50 points. Listen, 50.
But the Covington Heights did a lot of things. But
what did they score?
I think they scored 33 against the QC Crush, a team that they lost to twice last year.
It was 33. It was 33-12. You'll see it on your screen.
Right.
I said 33
points
to 12,
is a
right?
lot.
Yeah, I had it exactly. Yeah, 50 points is a lot. I saw it dropped on me firsthand. It's a lot of points. But what I'm saying is that when we start to see these teams play each other in Ohio, then we can get an idea. Because let's be honest, if
it's week one.
If the QC crush,
no, hear me out. I don't even think we have to explain these things, right?
Yes, we don't.
I think the answer to this is it's week one. We only got to see one team play another team. And all we're doing is basing it off of that one team.
And that's all I'm saying is that we're not saying that this is the presumptive favorite for Ohio, because if the Covington Heights go and they put up 90 on the Volcanoes, then all of a sudden the chaos don't look as great. So I mean, I'm not wishing 90 on anybody, because we saw what happened. We saw live firsthand what 80 looked like, and that was going to be 90.
All right, will we ever see a team? We've seen the 50 boys, we've seen the 60 boys. We've seen in the 80 boys. Will we see a 90 boys in the A7FL? We will never see a 90 boys.
Listen, A7 won't allow it. No.
The zone won't allow it. They will get on the phone just as fast as Stadium did. What up with it? Get this off my shit now. But again, with the chaos, honestly, start interviewing Dr. Jen Welter. Get something actually interesting on here. Let's go.
But with the chaos, again, honestly, the only thing that really impressed me is the amount they were able to score. It just means that whoever they played was that bad, or the chaos got it together enough to actually mount up an offense to put up those kind of numbers. Because even against kids, you're not going to go crazy like that.
What they had was the defense that got pressure and forced turnovers, right? Okay. And what we heard is that their core was going to be a group of those Ohio semi-pro guys that all were part of a defense. And so that's what we saw. And they forced a lot of turnovers. They got a couple. I think they got 2 pick sixes. I watched the game. And then when you look at what they did on offense, they have a mobile quarterback that was able to run all over the Volcanoes defense and get whatever he wanted with those easy plays. And as the Ohio division looks like they're still learning that 2 offensive line thing and spreading it out, if you have a running quarterback, at least to start, you can get those easy plays, especially when you're calling pass plays. They're only sending 2 rushers. Both of them are offensive line size. They're never going to catch number 2. And I think his name was Thomas Sr. But anyway, the what they did is they proved that they belong in the Ohio division, at least right now. And I think the 7 ranking shows that we're now putting a target on your back. 8. That 8 ranking says now there's a target on your back, Chaos. If any team in Ohio that's playing you wants to be recognized, they're now the underdogs facing you. You have to handle the pressure, and we'll see how they deal with that. And if they can, maybe they are going to be the team that comes out of Ohio. But I think, like we said in week 1, we can't deny that they played well.
And the way they scored.
They fit nicely right there.
Yeah, and the way they scored, too, because, Corey, you made an excellent point. It's week 1, and Rob, you said it's one team playing one team, but they scored on defense. They scored on offense. They scored on the 3-on-1s. Like, that's the thing. I don't think Vegas had a 3-on-1 touchdown yesterday, with the exception of Trey Robinson. I'm not sure if any other Curtis Jones, yeah. But the fact that the way those were set up, like, that was important. Like, Savion Cunningham, I don't think got a return touchdown yesterday, at least not to my knowledge, on Sunday.
He scored. I don't think it was on the 3-on-1, though.
But to have
the kryptonite, you got to remember that KJ Burrell is.
If they ain't in the top 10, get them boys out of here. We ain't talking about bums.
Making friends on the 3-on-1 podcast.
You know the vibe.
And if you want to learn how to be better at making friends, use Skillshare. Click the link in the bio, or watching us on DAZN, take a look at the screen right now on either side of me, and head on over to the link, get a free 30-day trial. That is from our friends at Skillshare. Skillshare, learn yourself something. And we are learning about a new team in the A7FL. We had a new team at number 8, and now for a team at number 9, our only team so far that has a loss on their record. There were 10 games in the A7FL. This past Sunday on opening day, and 2 of the 10 teams that won are not in our top 10. So we will go to a team that has a loss, that has an L, that has a crooked number in the loss column, and it's sick with it. Now, a lot of people think that they deserve to be in the top 5. A lot of people think that the Insomniacs deserve to be in the top 3. And they had a great game in week 1. They came up short against an Insomniacs team that many think can make a championship run. We talked about how great that team is with Scooter Hamilton, Trey Robinson, and RTC, and a litany of other great players on offense and defense. And Tone Smith, yeah.
Yep.
He's a potential Defensive Player of the Year candidate coming out of Vegas, but I don't know if you want to be Defensive Player of the Year after this past week, because it seems like it's kind of like the Madden curse. But no.
Point at him.
Point at him.
And if you want to know what we're talking about, head over to Instagram right now. Search the A7FL. Because
shout out to Rashad. I actually, after seeing that play, because I didn't see it live and I had to see it, as the socials were replaying it, I said, when I grow up, I want to be just like you.
Rashad Knight, that was amazing, man.
Imagine if I had that in my game. Oh my goodness, none of these teams.
Oh yeah, nobody would have cut you.
If you had the swizzle stick. Because that's what it was. He shook him and stirred him.
I feel like it's a pause.
Nah. If he had some of that sauce, he'd have definitely been somewhere.
Oh, your nickname could have been Sauce, Cory Sauce Hammond.
That would have been
It
fire.
would never have been Sauce. I don't think it would have.
We talked about the only
thing. But back to the sick with it.
Back to sick with it. Corey's about to derail us. Back to the sick with it.
I liked what I saw. JG Geary at quarterback is really solid. We saw him at the Battle at Bullhead. If you joined us for that earlier this year, they have a lot of solid weapons. Lavish T as a part of that team is devastating as a receiver, as a returner. Like the best returners so far in this league are coming out of the Northeast and coming out of Vegas because
yes, 3 of the, I would say, the top 6 receivers out there in Vegas fall. Webster Spencer.
Nathaniel.
Darren Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
And Lavish T. I think that they're all on sick with it. And, what we saw is that we saw a team that we knew nothing about prove against a team that we knew a lot about, just individual guys. I don't know if we knew that much about the Insomniacs as a whole squad and how they fit together chemistry-wise, but we knew we respected all the players that were on there. When we were talking about the players, we didn't even mention Munch, the wide receiver.
Yep.
So for Sick With It to be in a game that was that competitive, that was nonstop, pretty much offensive action. Every time one of the teams had a thing to say, score-wise, the other team would answer. So I think that they fit nicely in here at 9. And like we said earlier, and I think we're going to keep saying it, this Sunday, the Force versus Stick With It, that game is going to decide maybe who's the second best team in this fall. Maybe even the best, honestly, because of Sick With It or new.
Let's just be real. That's why they're here. I'm going to be very honest with you. I had Sick With It at 10. They're here at 9 because of the week 2 matchup, because it's gonna look good to say the number 9 team versus the number 4. It's just gonna.
I actually thought they were good, Rob, but I guess
I'm not saying that they're bad.
Look aesthetically not pleasing.
I'm not saying that they're bad. They gave the Insomniacs a run for their money, which is why the Insomniacs are under the Force, which again I don't agree with. I think out of that three-headed fight, I think the Insomniacs are the best, but with them having to prove this Force versus Sick With It on Sunday, we don't have to wait that long for an answer, fellas.
No,
we really
not
don't.
At all.
So I'm very okay with these guys sitting at 9 because Sunday we'll know everything we need to know. After Sunday, we'll know everything.
I'll give you 2 scenarios. What if the Force treat Sick With It like they did the Pit Bosses in week 2? Will we have to put them 3-2?
Then I think they're the number 2 team in the league.
Ooh.
Okay.
Because if you
then one or two.
No, I got. He got it.
So that makes sense.
Let me cook.
Clear it up.
Because whoever wins the 4 o'clock New Jersey game between the Watchmen and the BIC, that's the number 1 team in the league, straight up. That number 2 spot will be wide open because the Watchmen or the BIC will probably fall to 3 or 4.
Okay.
Force and Sick With It, or Force and Insomniacs, is a crazy game that's going to happen later this season. I think that's one of the deciding factors. Force and Sick With It. Force win, that proves that they can beat a stacked Vegas team. which is something we haven't had a chance to see yet.
Yeah, and my scenario was they blew them out. So how about this? What if Sick with It blows out them forces? Then what do we do with the force?
Then the force are out of the top 10.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. So this game, that's what I was saying about this game. So this game says a lot about who the force actually are.
This game this week is insane.
Yeah. Like you have the who allegedly some people think they're gonna get whooped by the Buzz.
Listen, hold on. I want to be very clear here. There's nobody on this podcast. I just want to be clear. I'm not gonna say who said it. I'm not gonna say who said it, but I know how these guys love to get upset at us, mad and hate. All I want to say is we don't think that.
No.
But when we talk amongst a larger group of people, there are thoughts, and the consensus is that DC Buzz is going to whoop the U's ass. That's what the consensus was. Matt, were you shocked?
Yeah, I was fairly astonished after the Baltimore Watchmen drove a Ghost and a Warthog all up in the tuchus of the DC Buzz. It was capture the flag in real life, and it was blood. They turned DC into Blood Gulch real fast and won that game.
Can I ask a serious question? Yeah. What is a buzz? Is it a bee? What is that?
Well, no, it's named after the music scene, like the buzz, the nightlife. Okay. That's why the bird has headphones.
There's some buzz down in DC. I got you. Yeah, like I always look at the thing and it's like a bird. It's got the headphones. It
DJ
like
Bird.
Word. All right. I play for the Omegas and it's like a purple moon night, so I'm down. Let's go.
So let's take a look at our final team, the only other team in this top 10 with a loss.
Who I think should be at number 9, but okay. Go ahead, Matt.
It's the East Orange Renegades. The reason why they are at 10 is because of this Sunday.
Yeah,
and they're playing this. They're playing the Animals, and they also got a loss. Like it was more what Sick With It did against the Insomniacs was more impressive because we had no idea what the Sick With It were going to do. We didn't know what that collection of players was going to do. Our ceiling for the Renegades in week 1 was higher than I think any unranked team in the league.
I could agree with that.
And they performed exceptionally well. But they did the things that limit the Renegades from being an upper-tier team in this league. The running game really couldn't get going. There were fits and starts. The offensive line is still a big problem. Wind aside, DeAndre Haynes continues to not be used as effectively as I think a player of his size and athletic ability on offense could be. That defense kept them out of a lot of trouble, in my opinion. Because there were a lot of 3-and-outs for the Renegades. A lot of 3-and-outs. And it took them 9 minutes or 3/4 of a quarter to score their first touchdown. Those, to me, are warning signs.
I think that first drive might have been even intentional a little bit because if you think about it, one of the things that made their game plan a little bit effective against BIC, other than allowing Ashanti Worthy to score 12 points so easily.
But they took, taking that time off in the beginning, when it's going to be a dogfight, and you don't have an answer to Ashanti Worthy on the 3-on-1s.
Well, it kept it close.
But you could have also peeled some of that time back and given CP3 more drives. Like the opportunity, they limited their opportunities to score. It's a double-edged sword to me.
3 more times, you give BIC more drives, though.
But
I think one of the things that was working for him was the BIC offense was like out of rhythm. So on the
it was
limited
too many
amount
new
of
pieces.
Drives. Well, the limited amount of drives, they weren't able to work into that rhythm, and they couldn't get.
But can't you say the same thing for the Renegades? Because there was a lot of mistimed plays in the early going of that game.
They played as close. I don't think the Renegades'
mistakes were more on them being out of sync rather than CP3 having to throw against the wind, and BIC was. You gotta listen. That's the thing with
BIC
strength
is
of,
still BIC.
no, exactly. That's my thing. BIC is still BIC. You're telling me that offensive line from the Renegades wasn't impressive when they had to block Ole, Ferrari, Psycho, Quincy Davis, who's a 6'5" behemoth. Bro, they had
how quick off the ball were they? They were still. I think the offensive line did a good job. Like,
scored in a game, they scored 20 points on BIC, and we were saying that BIC's defense might be better than they did last year. Who scored 20 points on BIC last year?
No one.
Year?
I did. I already checked. I already fact checked. I fact checked. Rare Breed scored 38. The U scored 19. No one else but Rare Breed and the U.
Yeah,
that's it. No one scored over 20 points on
And if
BIC
you're telling me that the Renegades offense is in the same conversation as an OG Buck-led Rare Breed team last year and a Quattrell Huffin U team that also didn't score one time 20 points, right. What you have to say is that regardless of how bad they looked at times, the Renegades did a pretty good job against the defense that I think all of the league, including this podcast, even though we dropped them, respect very, very highly.
Yeah,
so I think Matt's right. I think they could have done things a lot better at times. But
listen. That's every single team on the top 10 list. So I don't even want to harp and say, oh, the Renegades could have did better. Yeah, but they were playing BIC.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like
they even didn't score a point in the first quarter because they didn't put the right guy in it.
So the Watchmen could have did better.
Exactly.
So
everybody could have done.
And I don't want it to come across as an indictment. I don't want it to come across as an indictment that they lost to a on paper better team, but had one of the performances of the week.
Right.
I still see things that don't give me full faith yet.
The one thing that I totally 100% disagree with, and I'll let whoever wants to go is that when you talk about that, the amount of time in their drives and was that an issue, and is that a warning side? When we look at the final score that the BIC team put up after 12 of those points were from basically just spotted.
He took it right out of my mouth. Bro, BIC's offense did not score more than CP3 and the Renegades offense. Without those two returns from without those two returns from Ashante Worthy, BIC loses the game.
Yeah.
We're having a different conversation.
But that's not how we play the game, though.
They still have to.
I understand that's not how we play the game.
They still have the ball and they drive, so maybe they score those drives.
But guess what? Their offense, BIC's offense, wasn't clicking because of the wind. I'm not blaming Sterry. Sterry's a stud. We know who Sterry is. The wind messed them up. They didn't get a chance to get started, and they were plugging in a lot of new offensive line players in pieces. K-Wack played one freaking down against one of the best defensive lines in the league. That's the thing. I think it's time to kind of stop taking away credit from the Renegades, because if you guys remember, Cory, especially you remember when BIC and the Chiefs and those guys weren't good enough to sit in the same breath as the Bombers or SWG, until one day those same guys, me, Mason, Ant Live, Kenny Smith, those same guys are the same guys that ended up kicking ass later because we got better. So we have to give the Renegades defensive line that credit that they're getting better, then give the Renegades front office credit for actually being able to put together an offense that looks like a threat. Those guys look like
I want to talk about that defense, though, because Trey Baskerville, holy smokes, what a game he had.
Wow.
And honestly, I would not feel uncomfortable putting them higher than that. But the problem is they lost.
Right.
And it's hard to justify a team that won 52-6 not resting higher in a top 10 than a team that lost by no matter how many points, they still lost.
Right. Or a team in sick with it that was basically points away from our number 5 team beating them.
Yeah.
Right.
Like there's so many things that.
But I will say this for the Renegades. Guess what? 10 a.m. Even though you hate the time of the game, 10 a.m. You face the number
huge game.
You face the number 7 team on this list, and if you beat them, why not just flop the teams.
That
Bro,
to me,
it's a huge game.
that to me is a knockout game.
It is
Straight up.
It is.
It's not only a top
10,
10, and not only the top 10, but a chance at the playoffs. Like if the Renegades beat the Animals, they're making the playoffs, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And I want to say, if anybody on the Animals is frustrated with how I look at the game, you are more within your right to. I am not a player. I am a fat man who yells into a headset. Sometimes I get paid for it.
Wearing, for those listening to the podcast and not watching it on A7FL.tv or YouTube.
Or DAZN.
So for those, or DAZN, that's right. So for those listening, wherever podcasts are sold, Matt is not only what he says, but he's also wearing a shirt with his face on it.
That is true. So, I'm Cory Hammonding this week.
Players, let's go.
But the Renegades have
I'm wearing a face with a skull. That's my face too, because I just died.
The Renegades have a tall order in front of them. So Sunday is one of the greatest A7 football Sundays I've ever seen.
And let's take a look at that schedule for this Sunday. The top 3 games are what you're going to see on the games of the week here on DAZN and A7FL.tv. If you're watching on A7FL.tv, you will get access to every single game across the league in different feeds. But we start things off in the East at 10 a.m. We will not be on the call for that game, but you may hear us throughout that in the highlight portion, as it will be the Animals taking on the Renegades, the number 7 ranked Animals taking on the 10 ranked Renegades. That one, guys, going to be an interesting matchup, a rare CP3 versus Huff matchup.
My goodness.
Since we're not going to be able to give a prediction to that game live this Sunday, what are your predictions for that game? Rob, do you pick the Animals? Do you pick the Renegades? Who is it that's coming out with the dub this Sunday?
Damn, bro. This is why this is kind of the double-edged sword of it. I love that I get to even know that these guys are playing because it's CP3 versus Huff. It's the Animals versus the Renegades. I have to give it, Lord, everybody's going to hate me no matter what I say. I'm giving the win to the Renegades. And the reason why I'm going to give the win to the Renegades is because the Renegades have a little bit more than just a good quarterback. They have a good quarterback that can match the excitement of Huff, but now they also have 2 stud flex receiver running back guys in Khalil Green and Mike Liberty that can do any and everything. On top of that, a 6'6" behemoth who plays both sides of the ball and kickoff and will put his body on the line to get a win. I have to edge it to the Renegades. I say the Renegades beat them by at least a score. And it's no shade to the Animals, but they need, I just need to see who else is coming out. It's going to be a very good game, a very close game. I'll give it to the Renegades by 7.
I think it's a tough game to read because as much as we feel good about what the Renegades did, I remember when I was on the Renegades and we played BIC and we lost what we thought was a close game, and then we thought we were great. Right? You remember that, Rob? I was actually a guest. That week, I think, on the table.
Right.
And what I was preaching is because I was in my quarterback persona then, even though I was making fun of you guys for all being on the U and saying we all the time. That BIC almost win led into a game against the Bulldogs in which everybody thought that we were going to take the momentum as the Renegades and then ride that momentum and beat the Bulldogs team. It was a tough team, but it was a Baltimore team that we should have beaten. We lost that game. And what I told you, Rob, is we're taking it 1 week at a time, even though it feels good to be mentioned that it was a loss, that we got to fix things. But that isn't really what we did. Guys wanted to try new guys out in the first quarter because we were so confident after a loss. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Renegades learned from that. And I think they have. And I think they have the right quarterback under center in their huddle leading them, because Corey Price is the type of guy that's going to lead with his heart. And that warrior winner mentality is really tough to beat. But I will say this, as little as we saw from the Animals, I did see a lot. And I think the defensive line is legit. I think their corners are actually pretty damn good cover corners, to be fair. And I think what they added on offense, I don't know who that number 0 kid is, because, you know, when you're playing a team, you don't get the roster to get the names. But whoever Aldi's Shane Turner is, right? Am I not wrong? You guys were watching the Vegas game, I guess.
No, we were watching. No, number
Stewart
0 was good.
Yeah, that guy's scooting around like he's on roller skates, and he's not. So I think that game actually ends up being like a really close game that comes down to the last possession.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna completely punt on choosing it, because I have respect for both of those quarterbacks. And I think whoever has the ball last is gonna convert it.
Rob, I won't leave you alone. Rob, I won't leave you alone. I'm gonna take the Renegades as well. I think the Animals are very, very good.
All right, I'll take the Animals. I'll take the Animals, because I actually feel like I think the Animals could win, are likely to win. But if CP3 has the ball in his hand with 1 minute or maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less left, if he has a chance, I think he's going to be able to take it in against that defense.
Well, I know of a new player who's joining one of those teams, a legend in this league, someone who has done some clerking, let's just say.
Oh, shit.
You're allowed to say shit on the podcast.
I forgot where I was. Wait,
I started by saying, fuck them, just give them the top 10.
Oh,
so I think
shit.
we're good.
Hold on. We're joining which one of those teams? You won't say. Don't say, Matt. Never mind. Don't say. I'm just going to guess it's the Animals. And that's.
Nope. I don't think it's the Animals.
Holy shit. I'm not even going to inbox him and ask. I just want to watch. I just want to see. Don't give it away. I want to be surprised. Holy
who did we
shit.
say was who did we say was the outside teams looking in?
Oh, the OLIs are the Kryptonite and the Covington Heist. Both teams with wins.
So let's just say
wait. And the one team with the loss, and I know everyone's going to hate this pick. I think the Snow Tribe is still on the outside looking in with one loss.
Interesting.
Why? Well, because Takara Richardson made you say that?
No, Takara Richardson doesn't like me. She'll be all right. Anyway, the reason...
Looking back at the schedule, the Snow Tribe will have a chance to bounce themselves back into the top 10 when they play the Omegas in the 7 o'clock game. Corey will be behind center in that game. For the
Omegas, by the way.
Yes, for the Omegas.
Haven't watched the past 3 podcasts.
Who was confused? But because we'll be brief with these 3 teams, with the Snow Tribe, Jonathan Keels, as much as I call that young man trash, kind of proved me wrong this Sunday. He was dealing with the same wins that all these quarterbacks were dealing with, but his run game specifically was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
7 carries for 70+ yards, was averaging 10 yards a carry, and was giving that team energy. My problem with that Snow Tribe team, and we'll leave it here, is I watched those guys, a few of those guys, I watched them quit after Dion scored on that return. And had they not quit, the game was still 12-0 until they quit. And I think if they trust Jonathan Keels a little bit more and act like they're here to win with a defense led by Isaac, who guys have been trashing him because of, again, play of the week. We probably didn't even mention it. We probably mentioned his name. What Rashad Knight did was disgusting. It's going to be in the fight every week for best play of the year.
Yeah, it's currently play that and Ashanti starting the season with a touchdown.
Yeah, and even then, and that's what I'm saying. That's what makes that play so much more special. Ashanti started off the season with a touchdown.
Yeah,
and we've been. And
this was an extra point. It was an extra point. It was a 1-pointer.
That's what makes it so amazing. We've been able to do nothing but talk about Rashad Knight's amazing play on
as of now,
point.
and the numbers will grow by the time this airs or by the time you watch or listen to this. But on Instagram, it is over 80,000 views right now.
I'm not even surprised. And again, shouts to those kids that he coaches. I know they loved it. But a guy like Isaac Negron, who I guess we're looking over because of one bad tackle attempt, he's still the defensive player.
I'm not. No, he had a solid game. No, I know.
Yeah.
He had a solid game. Like the Snow Tribe My issue came down with how they started the game offensively. They relied a lot on that formation.
You want to hear the answer?
Yeah.
You want to hear the answer to that? Because I definitely tried to grill a few people about why that happened. They planned that. That's what they wanted.
So they scripted it.
They scripted that. That was 100% what they wanted to do. It wasn't because of the coaching staff. That's what they wanted to do.
So
they
Coach B,
their coaching staff wanted to start off the game like that. And guys, we have to be honest, it was working. They drove down the field on the number 3 team in the league, which is why, again, football is played in 4 quarters. But that first half, the Snow Tribe did look like who we thought they were.
They did, but not being able to score on those drives, not being able to take on the challenge in the second half and driving a little. But that first half too, you had it. It was 12-zip. Fair play, but when you're not able to convert against a U team that defensively lost one of their best players, is rebuilding, one of their best defensive weapons, Snag Sosa, is inherently a running back. So you're not going to see him come off the line the way we saw him play for the Rare Breed and for the Gators a year ago. Like, you're not going to see that. And that.
Well, I'll ask you this: where did the Snow Tribe offensively specifically struggle? It was third down conversions, and under 2 minutes, they really didn't look like they could do things.
And
because whose job on the roster? Well,
players quit.
But whose job on the roster is to convert third downs and orchestrate 2-minute drives?
You can't do the job if you don't have the players. And when your players give up before you do, Cory Hammond, we were there when the BIC players quit on me, you, Courage, and Scat.
Yeah, man.
They quit, and we couldn't put up a single point. Was that the definition of who we were? This is Big Rob, the quote-unquote great, right? I didn't score. We scored 6 points that game. So it's saying if your team doesn't want to follow or doesn't want to get behind you, it's going to look like that every game. But what I'm saying to the Snow Tribe is stop quitting on people that aren't quitting on you. That's all I'm really saying. And if, an emphatic win this week can get them still back in the same spot they're in here, and then if they continue to win, they might crack the top 10 again. But that's all. Outside looking in, that's it for the Snow Tribe. That's all I'm really saying for them.
And the Covington Heights got a win over a QC Crush team that I think is still finding their way. Didn't get the
QC Crush beat them twice last year. So this was a revenge game. 33-12 is a pretty handed day. And we got to give shout outs to Seth Chambers, who does pretty much everything for that team. And everybody in that division always mentions Seth Chambers whenever they're talking about football. So shout outs to the Covington Heist. And, for all the stuff we talked about that, they were the talk of the Ohio division. They were the team that we kind of mentioned all the time. And then I always try to put it in perspective that, the games that they lost and this and that, but we did see them in person. We saw that they bring a tough level of football, hard-nosed level of football. And I think they came into the 2023 season fixing some of the things that they got wrong last year. And they look pretty good in week 1. And then it comes down to the team that's the closest to the top 10, I think. And we'll see how they progress as the season goes on. Because I talked to Darnell Richardson, Lex Luthor, and Rob, you'd be interesting to know. Great performance, but the film is completely lost to the existence of the A7FL.
We have it.
No, I know. I'm just making a parallel to a game of mine in the Pennsylvania lore. But according to the sources that I speak to, because I haven't seen the film, Darnell Richardson 6 total touchdowns. 450 plus total yards. Lex Luthor is they played OTT.
Okay. I don't know.
So yeah, we'll see. But Lex Luthor, as promised, evil supervillain, plans on taking the world. This might be the start of his MVP tour. I'll just say that.
Well, we'll see that MVP tour, whether or not it comes to fruition or not, in the Kryptonite's first ever game of the week on the A7FL.TV broadcast. We'll be watching the Kryptonite take on the Hunters. That will be our 7 o'clock game here on DAZN and A7FL.TV. Our action and our day begins at 1 p.m. Eastern as the U will take on the DC Buzz, and at 4 p.m. the Watchmen will be taking on the BIC. Throughout the day, we will be looking live across the A7FL and getting you caught up on all things going across the league. We have a great slate of games for you this Sunday, and we got that started at action starting at 10 a.m. The games of the week starting at 1 p.m. We'll be with you through our 1 o'clock game, 4 o'clock game, and 7 o'clock game. If you're looking for more action, you can look across A7FL.tv and find your division and find your favorite players. If you don't want to listen to us, you don't have to. There's so many great options this Sunday, so many great games around the horn. And there are 11 games, guys. 1, 2, 3. Now, 10 games across the league this week, and I'm excited to see what exactly will go down when these teams start facing each other. I do believe we get Florida in the mix this week. There's a lot of great stuff going on, and the only way you can catch all the action without being at the stadium live, and you can find out how you can do that at A7FL.com, that's A7FL.com, is joining us live this Sunday on A7FL.tv. And guys, we'll head on out of here. We've got the Boston hat right there. We've got guys Rob dejected and frustrated with Cory continuing to be a living, breathing troll. But I want to thank my friends, Big Rob Fabien and Cory Hammond, for being my co-hosts and riding along with me. We host this thing together. We produce this thing together. So it's awesome to spend about 90 minutes or so with you guys every single week. And we'll be back with you on Sunday. For Big Rob Fabien, for Cory Hammond, I'm Matt Ryan. Head on over to tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. That's tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. Get yourself a Thick Boy Season t-shirt. Get yourself a Huss Huss t-shirt. Get yourself an I'll Try t-shirt. Or get all three of our faces on your chest. Wear them with pride. You get a bunch of different colors. You can wear blue, green, pink, whatever color you want at tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. But for Big Rob Fabien, for Cory Hammond, I'm Matt Ryan saying, as always, don't be an asshole.
I'll try.
I needed my 30 seconds to talk about this cute little list that our social team just came up with. Let me tell you something. If you don't have the Insomniacs in your top 3 from Las Vegas, you're not paying attention. If you don't have that sick-witted team in your top 5 from Vegas, you're not paying attention. If you don't think the Renegades are for real, you're not paying attention, okay? A lot of people saw BIC this past week and they thought maybe they were slacking a little bit, not what they were last year. It definitely looked that way. That's because of the hurricane type of conditions that we have out here in Jersey this time of year. But it's also because of the Twin Towers coming off the edge for that Renegades defense. There's nobody in this league that's going to mess with DeAndre Haynes and Baskerville, who are both 6'5", 6'7", coming off the edge. The Renegades always had that going on. Crazy defense. But what they didn't have was an offense. What do they do in the offseason? They pick up CP3, former championship quarterback for BIC. He got them their first chip. Who pairs up with him in the backfield? Mike Liberti, Khalil Green. The last time these three stepped on the field together was in 2020. And guess what? They beat BIC to get into the championship. Okay, so there's just a lot of things that are wacky about this list. We're giving the Watchmen so much credit because of their roster on paper. I haven't even seen them yet. Yeah, I know they got Ace Boogie and Bone and all these guys, and we know all the crazy stuff that they've done that they can do, but we haven't even seen them yet. So let's just step back for a couple minutes, look at what we've seen. The best game I saw all week, hands down, was Insomniacs versus Sick-Witted. That was high-level gameplay. Both teams played inspired defense. Both teams have breakout players. Trey Robinson is one of the best players in the league. Scooter Primetime is one of the most different players I've ever seen in the league. Just saying, it's not going to be easy for one of these East Coast teams to go out there in July and win that chip. I like the Insomniacs. I'm out.